Well, good evening to all the lovely participants and to our dear uh, speaker, esteemed speaker for today, Rajiv Gupta, a data scientist from Flipkart Internet Limited, Private Limited. Uh, Sama Audit Systems and Software Private Limited has been organizing Analytics Wednesday, a series of webinars, and this is the 34th session uh, where we are holding the topic being Analytics, the Journey by Rajiv Gupta. Now, this these series of sessions are supported by Government of Canada Trade Commissioner Service, and uh, in February we are holding a physical session at the High Commission in New Delhi, where we would be inviting chief internal auditors to attend the session. If all goes well, as far as COVID is concerned, that session is still on, as per the recent discussions with High Commission of Canada in New Delhi. Now, let me formally, we know about Sama. Today, I don't want to talk about Sama and the products and the services and the consulting. I'll directly jump into, because we have such an established speaker, I'll directly jump into formally introducing him before I ask him to take over the deliberations and the interactions. So about Rajiv Gupta, our speaker for today. He is an author, speaker, and a leader in governance and risk management. He is currently working as Vice President and Group Head Internal Audits at Flipkart Internet Private Limited. Prior to this, he has worked as Senior Vice President Global Audits at Diageo. Prior to that, he has headed internal controls for India and Southwest Asia at Coca-Cola and assurance manager at PwC in India and London. He is a chartered accountant, CFE, CISA, CCSA, and holds diploma in information systems audit. He is the author of Technical Guide on Internal Audit of Beverage Industry. Of course, no better person than him. Published by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India in December 2013. He is a guest speaker, a prolific speaker with Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, ISACA, ACFE, Institute of Internal Auditors, Software Asset Management Strategy Europe, and National Academy for Direct Taxes. So, a short, sweet introduction for Rajiv. So, over to you, Rajiv. Analytics, the journey.
Thank you so much, Deepji. Thanks for this invitation and the warm welcome. When I was, thinking of what to discuss, what to share in today's presentation, so I thought, why to go with the standard, discussion of what all type of technical analysis we can automate. For example, in procurement process, sales process, revenue, receivable, and all those. And I'm sure a lot of guidance is available, from companies like IDEA and, other, maybe big fours as well. So a lot of those guidances are available, and I could not have added any value in there. So in today's, say about around 40-45 minutes, I will be actually covering these three topics. One is why analytics, why we need that, and why we are actually talking about it. That is one. Second is how analytics are going to change the audit landscape. And many of you may be wondering, Raji, what is new in that? What is new in that is in last 2 years, some significant changes have happened. You may be aware of some of those changes, and some I will be, some of them will be new, and I will be sharing in next few minutes. And while as leaders, we have been talking about audit and analytics for maybe around 15 to 20 years. But the speed of adoption was very low so far. It has picked up to some extent during COVID period. And what are some of the trends which will continue, once this COVID trend comes down? So what are those audit and analytic trends which will continue? I'm going to cover in my second part. And last part, and this is something which I have specifically designed for today's discussion, is why not just analytics? And I will keep that sort of a secret sauce for maybe after I will talk about it maybe after 20-25 minutes. So be with me till that time. I will not spill the beans right now. So let get me started with why analytics, why we are talking about it. We all have seen that the world is changing. Whatever analytics we were doing, with different level of maturities. Some were still using Excel, some were using tools like Idea, some may be using some other open source softwares. So different organizations were at the different level of maturity around 2 years ago in their analytics journey. That maturity has gone up, and this trend is going to continue, ladies and gentlemen, because there are some trends which will remain with us once even the COVID is gone. One is the head office culture. We have started seeing the trend. We have started seeing the announcements from the organization. This head office culture is going to go away. And what does that mean? It means many of us who had to earlier work from the corporate office, and maybe those were in the metros or the tier 1 cities, it may no longer be required, and hence the dependence on analytics, the dependence on data is going to increase, and it is going to sustain as a trend. So this is one important change which will continue in months and years to come. Mega cities will decline. And what does that mean? Some of us who worked, say, from Goa in last 1.5 years, or maybe from Himalayas, or maybe from Costa Rica, we can still continue to do that with the power of analytics which we have. So a lot is going to change because of these two trends. 6 feet offices will become reality, which means that if the companies still want to have everybody in office, they have to either expand their infrastructure, or they have to allow the hybrid environment, which again opens up gate for the more use of analytics, more use of automation. Purpose-driven spending and dream vacations will come in, and hence people will be more open to use more of vacations. Yeah, so that's a new term which has come up, where people will be joining more of work along with vacation. So vacation will become more and more common, and hence a lot they will be delivering through automation, a lot they will be delivering through the power of analytics. So this trend is going to continue. E-commerce dominance will increase day by day. We all have already seen that trend. Telemedicine, something which I don't know about you, but for me for sure, I was never in favor of, say, video conferencing my doctor, or ordering my medicines, my family's medicines online. I was never in favor of it before COVID, but in last 1.5 years we have seen that we can to a great extent rely on them. And you would have also noticed the power of analytics which is being used in the telemedicine as well. There are many good examples in India, at least, of how great data analytics is being done by by these enablers like pharmacy earlier, and then we have 1mg and so on. A lot of leverage is being taken of the power of analytics in terms of giving you nudge that your medicines are about to be finished, you may have to reorder, or this is what you ordered in the past. So a lot of work is being done on the from the machine learning perspective to create that trust, to create that bonding with the customer, and to bring the customer experience piece into picture, which was lacking earlier. Chatbots, you would have seen, before COVID, the chatbots used to be only with some of the very high profile websites, but now you would have seen almost every website, whether it's a startup or a blue chip company, they all have chatbots. So with a chatbot coming in, the usage of data analytics is going to increase. The power of data is going to increase, because whatever question you ask as a human being, There is a data churning, there's data analysis which happens in the back end. And from that database, the answers are given by the chatbot. So a lot being done in that area. Low code or the no code software are going to become the norm. And there are some more organizational leverages which are encouraging companies to make more and more use of data analysis. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, on the why part, that why data analysis and data science, which we have been talking about for last almost 20 odd years, as even the audit and governance professional, the pace is going to pick up. If not, if in your organization, it has not yet picked now. Now, if that is the why part, then what will change? What will change in the first and the second line of defense, and what will change in audit? So that is something I'm going to cover in next few slides. First and second line of defense, as many of us know, it means how the operational management and how the internal controls, the second line of defense, are going to use the the power of data analysis. One phrase, one term which has not yet become common, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to become common in next few years, and that is to rationalize cost of controls. So far, very few CFOs, they are asking the audit functions, there are very few CFOs are asking the controls function how to reduce the cost of controls. Very few leaders are asking, but very soon, many more CFOs across the globe, they are going to start asking you and me how we can, by maintaining the same or the better level of governance, better level of audit, better level of compliance, how we can still reduce the cost of controls. The cost of controls went up, when SOX came in, and now companies are saying, let us, give the money back. Let us use the power of automation. Let us use the power of analytics to reduce the cost of control. So let us be prepared for that. And what does that mean? It means higher reliance will be on virtual governance, more and more use of automation, data analysis tools, data visualization tools like Tableau, Power BI, and whatnot. So that is going to increase. Preventive controls are going to be increased in demand. And again, that is where the power of analytics comes in. So if you look at the first and the second line of defense, this is where companies are going to have huge potential to reduce, to rationalize their cost of controls. And this is something which is coming in next couple of years. A lot of CFOs I'm foreseeing, they will start asking this question. And, it is good for, better for all of us if we start looking in these directions of automation, how we can bring preventive controls, how we can bring, the exception-based reporting, and how we can make them repeatable and sustainable. That is going to be the ask very soon from the first and the second line of defense. Then coming to the talent part, that how from the talent side, how the expectation will change. So this again, here I have a view. See, today what is happening? There are many audit functions, like the way, for example, I operate my department. We have a mix of pure play auditors and data scientists. They both are working together or trying to work together to bring the power of analytics into the audit function or to the first and the second line. However, what I'm expecting that very soon organizations are going to ask that we want to hire those chartered accountants or those MBAs who are also data scientists. So instead of hiring two different people, one auditor and data scientist, the ask is going to change from the skill set perspective. If I have to draw a parallel, it is very similar to, around year 2000 when, Microsoft Office had just come in. Because MS-DOS used to be there in around year 2000. Microsoft Office was coming in. Then from chartered accountants or from auditors, it was not really expected that they are a chartered accountant and they know, all these Excel, Word, or they are very good in Excel, Word, or PowerPoint presentation. That was not a basic ask. But now we can't even think of separating you and me with a basic, or good knowledge of MS Excel, Word, PowerPoint presentation. We are expected to know all this. So, ladies and gentlemen, similar expectation is going to come as far as data science is concerned. We all will be expected to have good working knowledge of data science. Now, when I say this, many people come back to me and say, Rajiv, what's big deal about data science? We have been doing data analysis in my function, in my role for last 10 years or maybe last 15 years. What's new in data science? So my answer to those of my colleagues has been that whatever data analysis you and me have been doing purely on the job is very much like a small, very small lake. And a mistake which we then make, that this lake is the ocean, which is not the case. When you understand what all you can do with the power of data science, which is much beyond the day-to-day data analysis we do in our jobs as an auditor or in any other finance functions, it is very, 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 very different. So data science is like an ocean, and what we do purely in our jobs, if we are not professionally trained as a data scientist, is very much like being restricted to a pond. That's how I draw a comparison, and hence very soon a time is going to come when all the new recruits they are going to be expected to know to have working knowledge of data science as well. And maybe if anyone is interested in knowing more, I can have offline chat as well on this one. So this is from the skills perspective. What is going to change as far as the ask by the companies are concerned. Then what does this mean to the internal audit function? Yeah, how the IA function is going to look like when more and more analytics are going to use and with higher reliance on data science. So this is what I think. This is how the audit function of the future is going to look. Risk assessment is going to become really, really agile. This is a term, agile or agility is a term which we have actually, misused a lot in last maybe 2 to 4 years. But in the true sense, an agile risk assessment is going to become a reality, which would actually mean the audit plan is going to become dynamic. So instead of audit plan being made, say at the beginning of the year or maybe at the beginning of the quarter, it is going to become much more agile, and an alignment needs to be made with the audit committee that X percentage of flexibility has to be given to you as the audit leaders, so that to that extent, based on what you are seeing as the outcome of analytics, you have the right, you have the authority to change the audit plan. Yeah. And maybe, in case someone is interested, I can talk more later on the dynamic audit approach, because I have experimented a lot on this piece. And what would these two blocks would mean? That the audits are going to become very, very focused. And when I say very focused, for example, one initiative on which I'm working these days is to set up a NASA type command center for continuous auditing, where there is going to be a specific set of my team members who are going to monitor the standard set of analytics on big screens. And in case any red flags are thrown by those analysis on the screen, they are gonna perform XYZ procedures. Those XYZ procedures would mean, for example, calling those particular sites and checking what is going wrong, what went wrong, what is happening there, by which the analytics are showing red flags. If they get a reasonable response, very good. If they don't get a reasonable response, that team member makes a, books a flight ticket and goes to that site and do audit of that particular area where he got the red flags. So that way, a portion of audit plans are going to become very, very focused, so that we target the areas of red flag then and there itself, instead of waiting for 6 months or a year when we will do a formal or a full-fledged audit for that. So this focused audits are going to become much more common. There are a few internal audit departments who are experimenting on this, but soon this will become a norm. That was the key message here. So this was on the second piece, ladies and gentlemen, which was what. The third piece is why just analytics? Why not just analytics? It is because, ladies and gentlemen, that your stakeholders, actually, they don't want your data analysis. Now, when I make this statement, people really get disturbed. They say, we have been discussing data analysis, for last so many minutes. And you are now saying that your stakeholders are not really interested in data analysis. So then what do they want? What are they interested in? So let me just, make that very clear. See, the data which we use for our audits, for our analytics and all those, the data is like, sand which is available. So there's no shortage of that sand, of that data which is available. So nobody is interested in that data, in that sand, in that data other than you and me. But when you perform data analysis, ladies and gentlemen, it is nothing but mixing cement with the sand. Now, your clients, your stakeholders, they are not interested in this mixture of cement and sand. This is something which actually you and me need. But many times what happens? We perform data analysis and we just throw that data analysis output to our stakeholders, which is like, throwing this mixture to them. They are not interested in this mixture. And then what happens? Many times we go a next level where we share findings with them that, okay, we performed this data analysis and we got some findings. But again, ladies and gentlemen, our stakeholders are not really interested in our findings, because our findings are just like bricks. There are many audit reports where we are, giving them 20 bricks, 25 bricks, which may comprise of, 5 high-risk bricks, 10 medium-risk bricks. But they really don't want these 20, 30 bricks or findings. What they are really interested in is a beautiful house. They are interested in the end product. And ladies and gentlemen, end product actually is a story, is actually how you are connecting the dots. It is about how you're adding context to the findings, context to the analysis which you have done. And then when you wrap everything together, this is what they are interested in. And many times, I have seen in my professional career so far, we feel very proud in talking about or in sharing either the mixture, which is data analysis, or the bricks with our stakeholders, without really appreciating the fact that it will be very difficult for them to connect the dots. So this is, one very important message I wanted to share, and I have few of my learnings in this space. Some of these learnings, I actually got on time. Some I learned the harder way. I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned from those mistakes. So next few slides are going to be mixture of some easy and some difficult learnings. Learning number one, guys. So why stories? Why data stories are so powerful? So let's understand that. Number one, with the help of the fact that how we as human beings, we are wired. Yeah. So let's see, all of us, or most of us have learned mathematics in our school, and we spent years, in learning geometry, which had these, 3 trigonometric equations, sine theta, cos theta, and tan theta. And we spent years in learning those. Now, if I ask you, any one of you, can you spell out what were the equations of these three? It will be very difficult for you to recollect. Yeah, even though we had spent years in learning those equations. Similarly, if I ask you, when was the first battle of Panipat, when it was fought? Now we may have read it many times. We may have read it in our schools or in the history books or in some novels which you may have gone through. But if I ask you that number, because number is again data, so if I ask you about that data, many of you won't remember when this battle was fought. But if I ask you, what was the moral of the story of of this the rabbit and the tortoise race story, I'm 100% sure all of us would have read this story or heard about this story only once in our life, but we all will give the same message, which is that slow and steady wins the race. So just think about it. In the first two pictures, you have actually data. You actually have something related to numbers, and we may have spent much more time in learning those numbers or in understanding those numbers, but we don't remember them now. But at the bottom of your screen, you see a story which you may have heard years ago only once, but all of you still remember the message. It is because, ladies and gentlemen, it is because of the wiring which we have. When numbers are tied up in a story, I will repeat, when numbers are tied up in a story which excites people, that is when they are able to retain, and that is when they are able to connect with your messaging and they are able to connect with your presentation. Yeah. So this is one reason which I have learned that why people love story. Yeah. Second reason is, guys, we all are competing these days with not with another human being. Not so, I'm not competing with another, audit leader. I am actually competing with starfish. We all are actually competing with starfish. Yeah. Why? It is because the attention span of a starfish is around, I think, 9 seconds. And the attention span of us as human beings, it has reduced to 7 to 8 seconds. So that is the competition we have these days. And it is quite possible that in my first, if not 7 to 8 seconds, maybe in first minute of, my presentation, many of you may have decided whether you want to hear more or not. Yeah. That is the attention span we are carrying these days. Now, interestingly, if 7 to 8 seconds is our attention span, when we are attending a formal presentation, maybe in our offices, it is proven that the attention span is average or upper averages of 18 minutes, 1-8. Now, when you are having meetings of 1 hour, 2 hour, 5 hours, you are going to lose your audience, yeah, in around 18 minutes. If you don't do some changes, and the biggest change which you can bring is storytelling. So instead of focusing on facts and figures, if you weave a story around it, which is connected with the person to whom you are giving that presentation, it is going to increase the attention span. Otherwise, it is proven in 18 minutes you're going to lose. Yeah. But there is another presentation, guys. There is another presentation for which people spend hours without any attention deficit. And that presentation is nothing but movies. People spend 3 hours non-stop. And when the movie ends, then they look at their watch. So see the difference. In general, attention span 7 to 8 seconds. In the formal presentation, with a stretch, it is around 18 minutes. But in case of movies, full 3 hours or whatever is the duration of that movie. Why it is so? It is because in movies, they tell you a story. In movies, they connect with you, or they keep you hooked with something called curiosity, with something called suspense. Yeah. So they make sure that when they are telling you the story, they are not losing you out in the next minute or next to next minute and so on. So whatever they want to convey, whether it's a number, whether it's a fact, whether it's a figure, they convey everything in the form of a story which has suspense or which has a sense of curiosity in this. And that is an important skill, which we, as many of us are chartered accountants, I'm sure, many of us would have ignored, for many years. That why I need storytelling. My team has done data analysis. We found these gaps. Let us just share these gaps with the with the stakeholders. But please remember that you are not the only one looking for their attention. In that 8 to 10 hours everybody works, you are one of the person they're going to meet, and you want that person to take action on what you are saying. How are you going to make that happen? You're going to make that happen only when he's listening you intently, when he's listening you so that he absorbs full message, he understands what you are trying to say, he understands how important it is for him, and then he takes action. And that can happen only when, while you are giving presentation, that person is not on WhatsApp. When you are giving presentation, that person is not scrolling LinkedIn or Facebook. When you are giving presentation, he is listening to you. And you can make it happen only when you are doing storytelling, woven around the data, around the analytics which you have done. That was reason number 2. Reason number 3, why we need data storytelling is, we as humans, we need an anchor. Yeah, we need an anchor. Now, what do I mean by anchor? And I learned this very late, but I would love to share, how important it is, and you can start using it right from tomorrow morning. See, we all know Chandrayaan. Yeah, that's a satellite ISRO has launched recently. If I ask you, can you tell me the total project cost of Chandrayaan? I'm sure many of you will struggle to recollect that number. That cost was very well communicated. That cost was everywhere on, on the news channels, in the print media, everywhere. And I'm sure many of you would have even read how much was the project cost. But if I ask you right now, how much was the project cost, you don't remember. Yeah, because it was an independent fact. Yeah. Let me remind you that for Mangalyaan, not Chandrayaan. So if I said Chandrayaan, so it was actually Mangalyaan. The project cost was 450 crores. Yeah, we forgot that. We would have forgotten that. But what our Prime Minister did, he used 2 hooks, 2 anchors in communicating that message. His anchor number 1, Mr. Modi's anchor number 1 was comparison with the auto rickshaw ride. What he said in his message, he said, if you travel by auto rickshaw, it cost you rupees 10 per kilometer. Our Mangalyaan has costed us only rupees 7 per kilometer. That is one beauty. That is one hook which he created, so that you can make one very important comparison, that yes, okay, if an auto rickshaw cost 10 rupees per kilometer, we spent less, we were more efficient. Or he created a hook in the form of the auto rickshaw cost, which many of us know, because many of us use in our day-to-day commute. Second hook which he used, Mr. Modi used, he said, the cost of our project was lower than the cost of Hollywood blockbuster movie Gravity. And he said, the movie costed $100 million. Our Mangalyaan costed $72 million. Yeah. So that is the second hook which he used in connecting the dots, in enabling you so that you can make a connect, that how much we spend, whether it was more or less, because otherwise 450 crore in itself is an absolute number. It doesn't give you any message. 450 crore, and as an independent number, it just tells you it is a fact. Whether we spend more, less, and is there a hook to remember it? It is it is not possible. But when Mr. Modi, he used these 2 anchors, an auto rickshaw and comparison with Hollywood blockbuster, many people remembered the facts because of these two hooks. So that is the beauty, and he used it not just for fun. He used it to ensure that we retain that data. And I encourage you that to see that many times, for example, even the Flipkart, around the Diwali sale period, what we call as Big Billion Day sale. When that 5 or 7 day sale is over, even Flipkart on their mobile app on the homepage, it does these type of comparisons where the company shares how many mobiles we sold. So it doesn't say we sold 100 mobiles during BBD, during Big Billion Day. It makes a comparison. For example, if it says how many, for example, clothes, apparels we sold. So they may be making comparison with the clothes which could have covered so many thousand football stadiums or so many thousand cricket stadiums. So that way it is easy for us, to remember how many, for example, shoes we sold, how many smartwatches we sold. If the company just tells you the number, 10,000 this, 5,000 that, it is very, very, common that you and me, we all will forget those numbers. But when the connection is made with another hook, then it is very easy to remember. This is a technique for data storytelling, ladies and gentlemen. I learned very late, but I am finding it very, very helpful, very, very effective in conveying the message to my stakeholders. Reason number 4, and this is something I wrote in Hindi, and I know some of the joinees are not from India, but I will translate. Reason number 4 is kya chahiye baba, which means what do you want? And that is the problem, that is the problem many times in our data, when we share our data analysis, we throw a lot of data to the stakeholder with whom we are meeting. And that stakeholder may be the CFO, maybe the CEO, maybe any other CXO of the company. And what happens many times, we get so much ingrained, we get so much into the flow of the tons of analytics we have done. We start with counting the trees, I would say. We go deeper into we did this analysis, we found this, and we go very deep into what we have done, and we've missed the point that higher the higher the level of the stakeholder whom you are meeting, lesser is the time which they can afford to actually go deeper into what you are talking about. And hence it becomes very important that we start with the message first. We tell them the good news or the bad news, whatever is the news, we tell them first, and then we go to the detail. Yeah. And what I learned, that let's come to the bottom line first. Normally what happens, we tell them all the detailed stories. We did this, we did that, we analyzed TBs of data. We found so many millions of red flags. We did this, and the bottom line is this. And by the time we reach the bottom line, we have already lost the interest and the attention of the leader we are meeting. So what I have found, what really works, if you have very short duration meeting with the senior stakeholders, you use bluff. Bluff means use bottom line upfront. Right at the beginning of the meeting, you tell him the good news or the bad news, and then say, let me now take you to the details. This technique has worked really well for me. And, I encourage my teams also to use this approach, because then in the minds of the stakeholder you're talking to, he's very clear that, okay, what all you did, what is the outcome? And then based on how much time he has or how much interest he has, he can, you can then carry on maybe for next 5 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour. It purely depends on how much that bottom line excites that particular leader. So that is, the fourth, reason I found why data storytelling is so important. The fifth and the last one is, see, we love playing match the following. Yeah. And when I say match the following, I have seen many times, and I'm sure all of you will be able to connect with me. I have seen a lot of slides where we have multiple charts, maybe 4, 5, 8 chart, just somehow fit into that slide, and there is some common messaging which the presenter is giving. Now, when the presenter is giving message, you have to figure out which of these 8 charts he is referring to. So we, many of us, we keep struggling. Okay, is he referring to the first chart? Is he referring to the third chart? Where is the connection? And many of us love, because we feel if we have thrown a lot of numbers, a lot of charts onto the screen, it shows we have done a lot of work. But what I have learned lately, more senior the stakeholder is, more simpler your analytics outcome has to be. More simpler, less amount of data in it, less usage of words, and very precise. Yeah. And the easiest example is the screenshot I have taken from the comics, from these comics we used to read when we were young. What is the beauty here? You don't have to match. Against every picture, the message is right there. Instead of having one message common and then you figure out that is this message relating to the first, or have I moved to the second picture, or have I moved to the third picture, which in our case, in our presentation case, these are charts. So having very clear messaging for each of the charts. Suppose I have, say, 4 charts on a single slide. Each of my chart, what is the importance of that chart? What is the message coming from that particular chart? That it may be a bar chart, line chart, it may be a table, I don't know. We use a lot of insights. But what is the message? That has to be right at the top of it, so that if the reader doesn't have time to go through the details of each of the chart, if he reads just the headings, if he reads just the message, he's clear what you are trying to say. And this is something which is very, simple to say, but many times we miss this very fundamental ask, that let's not give a common message. If a chart deserves to be on my slide, it deserves to be summarized as well, just above that particular chart, just like you can see on the right hand side of the screen. Yeah. So broadly, ladies and gentlemen, these are few things I wanted to share with all of you. If I just summarize what we discussed, number one, we discussed why analytics are going to pick pace and going to become more and more automated with the help of various tools which are available, and automation will move in the direction of sustainability and repeatability. So instead of performing the analytics again and again every time, more and more companies are going to automate them so that they are made repeatable. Then we discussed how those analyses, how they're going to change the way first line of defense, second line of defense, and the third line, which us as internal auditors, how our work, our scoping, our focus area is going to change. We also quickly discussed how, from the skill set side, how the expectation of the organization is going to change. Right now, we are hiring, auditors and data scientists. Tomorrow, organizations are going to say, I want an auditor who is also a data scientist. This is not far away, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to become reality very soon. We also talked about something which is going to come very soon, which is how we can help in rationalizing the cost of controls. Cost of controls, guys, increase with more and more manual controls, which many of our organizations have. But if we automate our analytics, if we make them repeatable and standardized, the cost of control is going to reduce significantly. So that is going to become asked from the finance leaders very soon. And lastly, I shared with you, why not stop at data analysis only? There I shared with you why data based storytelling is becoming more and more valuable, not from not from your junior most team members, but from people like you and me, because the outcome of the analytics, it has to be packaged in a manner that it excites the listener, it excites the stakeholder, because if he gets excited, he will take action. If he doesn't get excited, he may not be taking any action on the amazing insights which you may have created, because your analysis and your findings are like a mixture of cement and sand and bricks, which nobody wants. They want a story, they want your analytics outcome woven in the form of how it can impact the organization, how it is important for them, and very much related to an age-old saying, what is in it for me? So ladies and gentlemen, that was that was a brief presentation I wanted to share with all of you. I didn't keep it technically heavy, but in next 10 odd minutes, happy to pick up any question, be it technical, non-technical, from leadership angle or from technical angle. Happy to pick up any questions.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. Wonderful, wonderful. A very simple and powerful presentation. And especially a very strong messaging in terms of how analytics is going the visualization way, because you talked about storytelling. So that is why there is a need for you'll find that most of the tools, if IDEA or any other tool, they are building in more visualization, and also you can connect these tools to visualization tools like Tableau or Power BI, where the messaging and the storytelling becomes important, because that's how you convey it to the top management.
Right.
Any questions, please? I think we have got a wonderful audience today from across. So I think I just said, everybody just saying, Dolly Majumdar is saying powerful session. Savio is saying good examples. And especially we have the chief internal auditor of ISRO today. So he really liked to example about Mars, because, it concerns ISRO. You brought ISRO out. So achievement of ISRO. So, Shiva Kumarji is with us for a number of times, throughout. So I think there's a lot of appreciation from everyone, but no questions so far. So if you want to pick Rajiv's brains, anybody would like to ask any questions? Satish is saying, I like the qualification of data scientist for you, Rajiv. So Kagan from Turkey is saying, thanks again. So Rafa, yes, one question. Please, Rafa.
I think it's on Q&A tab.
On a Q&A or...
Okay. So Nagarjun
I think it's a
PPT. Yeah.
See, we usually do not share the PPT, but this entire presentation, including this video, would be put up on the Sama YouTube channel tomorrow morning, and it will remain there for everybody to view. So, it's open knowledge sharing. So you may kindly look at this presentation as many times as you like.
And feel free, if there's any technical question or anything relating to, even stakeholder management, anything. I mean, if you want to ask anything relating to tool or storytelling, happy to share.
Sure.
Rafa, you may like to type.
Rafa, could you unmute Rafa so that he can speak?
I'm unable to do it today. I'm not sure what's the reason. You'll have to put his question in the chat box.
Rafa, could you please put your question in the chat box or the Q&A, please? There's one question on how to understand what top management wants at the beginning, outcome or background. Sometimes they want to understand the background before going to findings directly. Because I think, Rajiv, you talked about, giving the summary, giving them the outcome before you delve into the details. So there's a question here. There's a dilemma here. So would you like to take that, please?
Very, very good point. And practically, it happens many times. And what you will see that giving background is very important. Yeah. So there's no compromise on that. But what happens many times when we give background, after giving background, we feel very much excited to share what all great work, in-depth work we have done. Yeah. And I have seen that many times, with my own teams in the past. We feel pride in sharing, what all heavy data we downloaded, what all different tools we used for analytics, for prediction, then how we connected that with the, with visualization tools. And then here's the outcome. And then within that beautiful outcome, what is the message that comes in the end? Many times that happens. And by that time, you have lost the patience of the senior leader. So my point was, to that effect, that you set the background. After setting the background, you share the news with him. Yeah. If there is an ask, for example, suppose, your data analysis outcome is that because of XYZ analysis you have done, you have gone to the CFO to have 2 additional headcount. So it is very important, as you rightly asked, that giving that context is very important, that this discussion is on additional headcount, which I may need. And, in next few minutes, I'm going to share the case around it. It sets the right context. Otherwise, giving the entire explaining everything, and then in the end saying, and hence I need 2 headcount, many times it doesn't work that way. Mentally preparing the other person about what is the objective you are trying to achieve by the end of this meeting. If you bring that upfront, mentally that person is getting prepared, and there is no surprise for him. And many times, if you go for any additional cost or headcount, it comes as an unpleasant surprise for the stakeholder. Oh, Baba, you are asking for something which relates to money. So that way, whatever is the bluff, the bottom line, what is the key message? It is very similar. Let me give an example. It is very similar to releasing the executive summary as well.
Rajiv, sorry. Can I just interrupt you? There's one more question which is relevant to what you're explaining. Satish is asking, can you explain how storytelling, how you used it by giving an example, from an audit observation? How have you used, can you give an example of storytelling where you have conveyed an audit observation to the management?
Okay. See, audit observation, I may not be able to share, but let me share from the strategy side, for example. Yeah. How, for example, using data analysis, we can move the function, and in which company, again, I'll keep that, aside. How we can use automated data analysis over a period of 3 years in moving from where we are, where we have, say, X percentage of mix of manual procedures and automated procedures over a progression of 3 years, how we will reverse the percentage of reliance on data analysis and manual controls. And in the end state, how my function will look like. So what I did, I started with the end state. I used Bluff, where I shared with the approving that committee that in the end state, we are going to have a NASA type command center, which is gonna change how we work. And with that change, what benefit it will bring to the organization, what benefit it will bring to the audit committee, and how it will ensure that instead of doing, having X percentage of reliance on data, on sample testing, our reliance on data analysis will increase by X percentage. So that was all woven into a story as to why we need 3 years, what is the end state we want to go, and are you aligned with that end state? As an organization, do you really want to reach that level of audit maturity? So that was the starting point. I created a hook with that. And once the stakeholder got connected with the hook that, yes, we need this, then I shared the entire story backward, that this will be the cost, which will be cheaper than if we do, for example, pure external, external audit function or pure external data scientist based. How much multiple times we will be able to cover the organization. So that way, I created the story around firstly the end state, created the hook, shared the bottom line that if this is the direction we're gonna go, this is the money, this is the budget we would need. Once the hook was created and once the journey was shared, it became very easy to connect the dots that how each and every progression is going to contribute to the end state where the audit committee wants to go, where the CXO wants to go, to showcase that yes, our internal audit department is going as per the need of the hour. Can't share more.
No, I think Satish is saying it is wonderful. Really appreciate. There's one question from Rafa. So I think what he's asking is, Agile is becoming more useful. For me, Agile is results just here. So what is the purpose of a final presentation to members of the boards if it is supposed that they have already been informed previously, because we are doing Agile auditing? And again, adding to that, is that the reason the presentation of results should be a summary of something that was already discussed on the way?
Very good. I mean, very action-oriented question. So, Rafa, if as a function, if we are agile, what does that mean? It means we are no longer bound with the audit plan we prepared a quarter ago or a year ago. We are agile. Yeah, we will be changing it. And if to the stakeholder to whom we are going to give presentation, if they already know it, I think the key message from our side is, as an organization, are we progressing on that risk remediation or not? Let me take an example. Suppose we automated analytics using a tool like IDEA and others which are available, and we designed it. We shared that analytics with our colleagues in the first line and the second line also, that we will use it maybe once in a quarter, but you guys are running the business. Why don't you use it every day? For example, when they are releasing payments, say twice a day, they want to do duplicate check because their ERP configuration is not great, and they want to do a duplicate check that a vendor is not being paid, again for the same, invoice. Now, if I check every quarter for 90 days, we have already done the blunder. But if my friends in first line or the second line, they run that analytics just before making the payment, they can be preventive. They can stop that extra outflow going out. Now, so if that information is already available with management, what value I will create by running it quarterly basis? Management is anyways running it every day. Value which I will create is I will do trend analysis. That we designed an automated control. We designed a data analytic based control. With that control, is the trend of duplicate payment is going down or not? Because if management is working well on that area, that the duplicate payments have to go down, they have to go south. But if I see that month on month or quarter by quarter, the amount is still almost same, or it is going up, the amount of duplicate payment, that's something which calls for a conversation with those colleagues that, Baba, what you guys are doing? Yeah, you are running the script, but you're not taking any action. So here, even though they know there is a problem, they are not taking any action, and that calls for my update to be given to the update to be given from my side to the audit committee, that while we enable data analysis, they are not being effectively used. As an organization, we are still suffering. So this is one very good example of how we can work together in this agile environment as well.
Thank you very much. I think excellent response. That is what Rafa says, So I think it is really excellent, Rajiv. I think there are no other questions. And so if there are no other questions, Rajiv, I have this opportunity to really thank you. It was such a wonderful presentation, so simple that the takeaways are all ingrained, because like you made the presentation or talked about visualization, storytelling, creating hooks. I think the presentation was made by you by creating a lot of hooks in the presentation. So what happened is that it's all, all the pointers that you gave, 5 or 6 major key pointers that you brought out in this presentation about analytics, that they're all ingrained. So that, from tomorrow onwards, you can go out and, you can start thinking about it as you do your jobs and maybe become action oriented. There are some more comments, which I'll just like to read very quickly. Rafa says, Merry Christmas, appreciate, very soft but in the right point. Thanks for insightful session. Our friend Jitendra Khatri talks about, there are excellent session. Richa Bajaj, Thank you so much. Informative session. Great hooks to keep us engaged. Rajesh Chakote, very informative for today's world. Thanks. Shiv Kumar from ISRO. So I think all in all, a really excellent presentation. Simple but very powerful. So I think that's a lot of takeaways for all of us as internal artists. So Rajiv, thank you once again for this wonderful presentation, for sparing time out of your busy schedule, for being available for this informative webinar series, Analytics Wednesday. If any of you participants, thank you very much to all the participants for being live. Many of you have joined from across the world, so it is very early in the morning or it's late in the night, but you have joined in. So thank you for that. And this session is recorded, so it will be available to all of you tomorrow morning onwards on our Sama YouTube channel. So you can watch it. If you have missed out certain portions, you can always watch it, and your friends can watch it. Your team members can watch this session. All the participants, I would just like to say a very big thank you. And next week we'll have one more interactive session like today. We have planned for the next 2 weeks, and we'll keep doing these sessions. Today was the 34th session, so the 35th session next week will be held on next Wednesday on 29th December. So we look forward to all of you to join in. And if you have any questions which you have not thought about but you think later, you may write to us and we'll send it to Rajiv, or it'll be great. We can always come back to you with answers. So thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Deepji. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.